My name is Christopher Tugendhat, and I'm in the unusual position of having had forebears on both sides. My maternal grandfather was in the Royal Artillery. He was an officer in the Royal Artillery, and he was killed in France in 1915. My father was an officer in the Austro-Hungarian army, and he fought on the Russian and the Italian fronts. Well, my maternal grandfather was a regular officer in the Royal Artillery, and he was killed in France in 1915. He was a Roman Catholic, and he was also an artillery spotter. And those 2 points are relevant because an artillery spotter was out in front of the line and therefore not killed along with a mass of other people. He was in a solitary position. And when he was shot by a sniper, the Catholic chaplain sent details to my grandmother showing where he was killed. And some years ago, my brother and I followed up those details, and we think we may have stood in the field in which my grandfather was killed. Well, my father joined the Austro-Hungarian army in 1915, the same year as my maternal grandfather in the British Army was killed, and he was an officer in the Imperial Artillery. And amongst other experiences, he was at the last great victory of the Austro-Hungarian army at Caporetto in Italy. And after that, the Austrians advanced, and they were eventually stopped by British and French troops who'd moved to reinforce the Italians, and the line stabilized, and my father was on one side of a valley and there was a British unit on the other, and the war had quietened down a bit and they didn't fire when each other's rations came up and so forth, and my father knew who the British officer was and vice versa. And then after the war, my father was the first person to have fought against Britain to go to a British university. He went to the London School of Economics in 1921. And there he met his British opposite number, who was Hugh Dalton. And Hugh Dalton later went on to become Chancellor of the Exchequer in the post-war Labour government. Then later on in the 1950s, when I was a Cambridge undergraduate, I was a member of the Conservative Association. But in those days, Conservatives went to the Labour meetings and Labour people went to the Conservative meetings. And I was at this Labour meeting, and the chairman, Brian Lapping, the well-known TV person, said, "Comrade Tugendhat," and I stood up, and Hugh Dalton said, "Tugendhat?" He said, "Tugendhat, I tried to shoot your father." And I was amazed, and so was everybody else. And after the meeting, he told me what I've just told you about how he and my father had been opposite each other during the war. So I told my father about this, but like so many other people who were in the First War, my father was very reluctant ever to speak about his experiences.